Recording begins. Yes. Okay, so NM12 HR 15, rectification of errors. We have had a little introduction to the errors rectification part in control accounts, but that was only a very specific set of errors. वो सारे के सारे errors जो थे वो आपके control account specific errors थे, but obviously errors are not just happening in the control account reconciliation part. Errors बाकी जगहों पे भी होंगे. So इस topic के अंदर हम जितने भी बाकी के हमारे जनरली एरर्स होंगे इंक्लूडिंग द वंस रेलेवेंट टू कंट्रोल अकाउंट उन सबको अब हम फॉर्मल तरीके से डबल एंट्री रिकॉर्ड्स के हिसाब से व्हाट टू डेबिट व्हाट टू क्रेडिट we will learn to rectify that. And for that, we need to understand the nature of errors. We have two broad categories of errors. We classify them either as errors which do not affect the double entry system, the double entry equilibrium, right? And errors which do cause a disequilibrium, right? So far, we only know about maybe we are only familiar with this type of an error because we have this impression from day one that if your trial balance or your balance sheet or your control accounts they fail to reconcile, then these are going to be it generally means that there are errors somewhere. So we know from our double entry system that there are certain balancing procedures, there are certain balancing properties, and if you can't fulfill those conditions or वो balance जो है वो out of equilibrium चला जाए तो फिर उसका मतलब होता है that we have made some errors. So we are familiar with this part, right? But you will be surprised to see that there are certain errors which will still happen in your books and they will not cause any disequilibrium. They will not affect the double entry equilibrium. Now, this may sound strange because we are under this impression that every time our trial balance balances or the balance sheet balances or control account reconciles with the ledger, then that means everything is correct. Mostly is correct, but there is still a possibility that you have had some errors and they are not revealed by the double entry system. So आज हम पहले इस section को discuss करेंगे, and then maybe tomorrow and in the future lessons we will come to these other types of errors. So how is it possible, first of all, how is it that you made errors in your books and it does not affect your double entry system? Let me give you the double entry equilibrium condition. As long as there is a debit entry in the books which is equal to the corresponding credit entries, and you've made both these entries in the books and they're equal, your trial balance, your balance sheet, they will balance, your control account will reconcile with the ledger statements, as long as this condition is met, this one, right? What if you make a double entry in the books in a way that your debit entry is equal to the credit entry, but they are both wrong? Even if they're wrong and they're equal, your trial balance would still be balanced. Your balance sheet would still be balanced. And your control account and reconciliation statement will match with each other as long as this condition prevails. So we now understand that the errors which do not cause the double entry equilibrium are the errors where we have a debit entry in the books and the credit entry in the books, and they are both equal to each other. Even if they're wrong, but they're equal to each other, your double entry system will not be able to reveal such errors. So these are very dangerous errors because they're kind of hidden. They are not reflected by your double entry system. It's like diabetes, right? No pain, no discomforts, but it's eating you up from inside. So these are kind of dangerous. These are the errors. The other type of errors are going to be quickly revealed by a disequilibrium in your double entry system. Your trial balance will fail to balance, your balance sheet will fail to balance, your control account will not reconcile with the ledger. So it's easy to find them, it's easy to know their presence, but these are very dangerous ones because you can't really know their presence. So that is why we have to pay special attention over here. So feedback, please, if you understand the condition that if this condition prevails, even if the debit entry is wrong, but it is equal to the credit entry, you will still have a balanced trial balance. And your balance sheet will still balance, and your control accounts have a procedure, accounting procedure, which revolves around the check of accuracy based on the balancing property. These errors are not going to be revealed by those procedures. So we are familiar with three: trial balance, the balance sheet, and the control account reconciliation part. All of these procedures, they check the arithmetical accuracy of your data based on debits being equal to credit. So such errors are not going to be revealed by these procedures. Now, how do we categorize these errors? We are going to discuss this part first here, right? So we are going to list down 6 different possibilities, 5 or 6 different possibilities, and we are going to see that how these errors, they corrupt our records, still remain undetected. So the first type of such an error, we title them as omission error. Omission errors are, as the name suggests, they are completely omitted from a transaction has been completely omitted from the books, right? That means ना कोई account debit हुआ, ना कोई account credit हुआ. So obviously debit and credit disequilibrium has not been caused by such errors. So, but trial balance will be balanced. और बात है कि trial balance will be balanced with an understated value because one transaction was completely omitted. So we understand the omission errors. A transaction which was supposed to be placed in the books, but it was completely omitted from the books. That means nothing was debited, nothing was credited. That means no disequilibrium, right? And Madiha and Marine and Misha and Manal. Right? We will learn how to rectify these errors in a bit. But first of all, we need to understand the nature and the difference between these errors, right? So the second error is what we call a commission error. A commission error Any O-level accounting students who can remember commission error? I just want to take some feedback here first. So any O-level accounting students who can just tell me what a commission error is, because there is a little misconception that I want to address here. That is why I want to take the feedback. So Madiha and Maheen and who else? Amna, probably. No, Amna nahi Kiwi. Asma, probably. I don't know. Whoever has done O-level accounting, if you can recall the definition of a commission error or the distinguishing characteristic of a commission error, please, in the chat box, if you can recall it. Any O-level accounting student. The wrong account of debtors and creditor is used. Maheen, very good. Anyone else? Any other O-level accounting student who could recall that? Or if you agree with Maheen's answer? Okay, I guess not. So commission error, Maheen, that is exactly I was looking for, because this is the problem with the O-level accounting, because O-level accounting with things had to be presented to the students in a very simpler way to be able to be easily digestible. But remember, this is not the correct way of describing a commission error. If you can refer to Maheen's answer in the chat box, Maheen has written the wrong account of debtor or creditor has been selected. This is not how we define commission error. Commission error, this is one of the many examples of a commission error. Actually, what Maheen has described is one of the ways or one of the examples of a commission error. The correct way of describing a commission error is wrong selection of an account, but of correct type or correct nature, right? So if you selected a wrong account, but the nature or the basic fundamental classification of that account was correct, that is a commission error. Let me give you an example. The example is rent paid by check. $100, let's say, was posted to salaries account, right? This is also an example of commission error. Now you see the error is that you paid rent. It was supposed to be debited. Rent account was supposed to have been debited, but you debited this account wrongly. आपने इसको डेबिट कर दिया, सैलरीज अकाउंट. पोस्टेड का मतलब है जो भी उसकी अप्रोप्रिएट साइट थी उसके अंदर आपने प्लेस कर दिया. So if rent was paid by check, then you should have debited the rent account and should have credited the bank account here, right? But since the error doesn't say anything about the bank part, it only says that rent was posted to salaries account. So that means the problem over here is that instead of debiting rent, you debited salaries account wrongly. This is an error of commission. Why is it an error of commission? Because rent is an expense account, so is salaries. So expense A के account की बजाय आपने expense B के account को select कर लिया. So you chose a wrong type of wrong account selection, but of correct type. That is the example of a commission error, right? Another example is what Maheen has mentioned in the chat. Okay. For example, the second example could be received a check of $100 from debtor X was credited to debtor Y, right? So again, you selected a wrong account here. This entry should have been debited. This should have been debited to the bank account and should have been credited to the debtor's X's account. You mistakenly chose debtor Y's account here. So you selected a wrong account, but it was of the correct type or correct nature. So we understand commission error here? Ji, feedback time, please. Fajr, Iman Badr, Madiha, Maheen. Do we understand, Maheen? Commission errors are not just about the personal accounts. I wanted to take that feedback because in O-levels, generally it is taught like that commission error means you have selected a wrong personal account. That means instead of a debtor X, debtor Y का account choose कर लिया, creditor X की बजाय creditor Y के account को choose कर लिया. So it's a wrong personal account. You swap the personal accounts together. Commission error is not just about personal accounts. Commission error generally means it's a wrong selection of account, but of correct nature or correct type. So we need to fix this error, and this is not it's basically Frankfurt, जो बड़ी popular किताब है ना O level के अंदर, ये misconception वहाँ से generate हुई है क्योंकि उसके earlier editions के अंदर commission error को इस तरह से describe किया हुआ था और फिर बाद में वो बाद में rectify हो गया, लेकिन teachers generally continue to teach the same way. So that is why I wanted to address this particular part. So commission error means wrong account, but of correct type. So how do we fix these errors? The actual purpose of this chapter is to fix these errors. So now we'll have to see how to fix this error. Let's take the first example. Rent paid by check, $100 was posted to salaries account. So we know salaries account has been wrongly debited. Because expense account है, post होने का मतलब है उस account की जो भी appropriate side थी, आपने वहाँ पे उसको post करना था. So since this is an expense account, then salaries was wrongly debited. We can say posted को हम यहाँ पे define कर सकते हैं, it was debited, right? So salaries account was wrongly posted. So in order to rectify this error, we should credit salaries account with $100 and we should debit the rent account, which should have been debited in the first place. So this is how the rectification entry will be done for the first example. Rent को डेबिट करना चाहिए था, आपने नहीं किया, तो अब आप रेंट को डेबिट कर देंगे और सैलरीज को आप क्रेडिट कर देंगे बिकॉज आपने सैलरीज को गलती से क्रेडिट कर दिया था. सो इन ऑर्डर टू रेक्टिफाई द सैलरीज अकाउंट यू नीड, सैलरीज को आपने डेबिट कर दिया था गलती से. So in order to rectify the salaries account, you need to credit the salaries account. And in order to rectify a rent account, you need to debit it because rent was under debited previously. It was supposed to have been debited and that entry was completely skipped. So you understand the rectification for the first example of commission error? Give me a green check in the feedback window. Amal? Good. Now, how do we rectify the second entry here? The second entry is that we received, the second example says, we received a check of $100 from debtor X. So we were supposed to debit the bank account and we were supposed to credit debtor X's account. We credited debtor Y's account mistakenly. So that means debtor Y has been over credited for no good reason. So what do we do now? We debit debtor Y's account. Debtor Y's account is going to be debited with $100, right? And we will credit debtor X's account where this entry should have been placed initially, right? So this should be the rectification entry for the second example of this commission error. So if you agree with the commission error, second example's rectification entry, again, feedback, please. Iman Badr? Good, very good. Madiha? All right, very good. Now we move on to the third possibility of errors. We call them principal errors. A principal error is wrong selection of an account, just like commission error, but also of wrong type or wrong nature. So you can see commission error and principal error are quite similar to each other. And their description is when we do the actual questions, why was salaries credited but debited? Alina Sayed? We have to see the error. We need to see where the error was originally made. So if we see error here, rent was supposed to be debited. But what we did, we debited the salaries account. So इस केस में salaries account जो है वहाँ पर error हुआ है, वहाँ पर हमने एक unnecessary debit entry कर दी हुई. So how do we fix that? By crediting the salaries account, right? So this is the error which is corrected. And then we come to rent account. Rent should have been debited and it was not debited, and that's why we debit the rent account. Every error is going to be different. We can't make rules that हमेशा ऐसा ही होगा, because errors they don't follow any discipline. So errors की nature, उनकी error जिस तरीके से आपने commit किया हुआ है उसकी basis के ऊपर एरर जिस तरीके से आपने कमिट किया है उसकी बेसिस पे आप रेक्टिफिकेशन डिसाइड करेंगे. Since they both had the same nature initially, right? Yeah, they both have the same nature, but the problem is rent should have been debited. Rent को डेबिट करने के बजाय अगर आपने सैलरीज को डेबिट कर दिया तो फिर आप सैलरीज को क्रेडिट करके ठीक करेंगे ना. Error तो हो गया. I will explain this with the principal error and then we will see, right? Don't worry, अभी हम करते हैं. Let me give a principal error की भी example and then we will compare both these errors together. So let's take this example. Discount allowed बल्कि ऐसा कहते हैं डिस्काउंट रिसीव्ड कर देते हैं ताकि ये इंप्रेशन वो डेबिट वाले की बजाय. डिस्काउंट रिसीव्ड $100 was debited to was credited to capital account, right? This is again, it's just a very random error. Discount received is an income. You were supposed to credit discount received. This account should have been credited, right? It was credited to the capital account, right? So capital account Now, this is an error of principle. Discount received is an income, capital account is an obligation, a liability for the business entity. So you confused an income with a liability. So it's not just about the wrong selection of account. You have also made a principal violation over here, or so to speak, you have chosen a wrong nature of account for this entry. So you can see the statements of these errors are quite similar. Blah blah was posted to blah blah account, blah blah check was posted to blah blah account, discount received was credited to the capital account. The statements, they look quite similar to each other. But over here, this was a relatively harmless error. I'll explain the meaning of this. It's a relatively, commission errors are relatively harmless errors. But these are really dreadful errors. Where, now, why is this an harmful error? Why is this? Why are these harmful errors? Less harmful errors, they are kind of harmless. Because if you debit salaries account instead of the rent account, your overall expenses are fine. आपने सैलरीज अकाउंट में एंट्री करने के बजाय अगर रेंट अकाउंट में कर दिए तो आपका एक्सपेंसेस का टोटल जो है वो डिस्टर्ब नहीं हुआ, वो वैसे का वैसे ही रहा. दैट मीन्स इवेंचुअली योर प्रॉफिट्स आर फाइन, दे आर नॉट रॉन्ग, and your significant values in the financial statements, they are still showing the correct amounts. You agree that instead of showing rent का part, अगर आप salaries में debit कर देंगे तो आपकी income statement में overall expenses का amount will remain undisturbed. It won't change. And if that is the case, your net profit is still correct. Do you agree with this? Looking at the first example, do you agree that the significant values in your financial statement, which means your profit in the income statement and in the balance sheet, the main जो आपके main headings होती हैं non current assets वगैरह, उनके अंदर कोई major issue नहीं हो रहा. So even if you have committed this error, your financial statement will still, your income statement would still be showing the correct value of the net profit, right? Give me a green check here if you understand this, that the commission errors are relatively harmless errors because they do not affect your your overall significant values of your financial statements. Fajr? Good. But when we come to this, and let's take the second error as well. We received a check from debtor X and we credited debtors Y. So हमने debtor X के account को decrease करने के बजाय हमने debtor Y के account को decrease कर दिया, right? लेकिन हमारे overall debtors में तो कोई change नहीं आया. हमारे trade receivables, what we show in our balance sheet in the current asset section, that means our current asset section's total is still correct, and there is nothing wrong with the balance sheet significant part there. So commission errors are, that is why also considered to be harmless errors, because they only affect specific items in your double entry books which do not have any major impact on your financial statements. That is why commission errors are considered less harmful errors, or they're kind of harmless errors. We understand the second example? That the second example, even though the error has taken place, however, this error does not affect the current assets totals of your balance sheet. Your balance sheet will still be showing correct values. That is why we need to separate them from the principal errors. Iman and Misha? अगर आपने डेटर X के अकाउंट को कम करना था, आपने उसकी बजाय डेटर Y के अकाउंट को डिक्रीज कर दिया, तो इसका मतलब है आपके ओवरऑल डेटर्स में तो कोई चेंज नहीं आया, वो तो उतने के उतने ही रहेंगे जितने पहले थे. Good. But now let's take a look at this principal error. What is happening here? An income was confused with a liability. So what does it mean? It means your incomes are wrong. Let me just put everything here. Income is wrong. Your equity section is in the balance sheet is wrong. And that means your profit is also wrong because the income is wrong. So this principal error is going to literally destroy all the values in your, all the major significant values in your financial statement. Your profit in the income statement will be calculated wrongly. The income's total is understated because of this error. Also, your balance sheet will be showing a wrong value of your equity. That is why principal errors are quite harmful errors, because they are going to have multiple impacts on your financial statements, and your financial statements will end up revealing wrong amounts. So if you understand this part, give me a green check and then we will rectify this. Madiha. Excellent. So let's rectify this error now. So this error, let's see, how do we do this? Discount received एक income है, should have been credited. हमने इसको credit नहीं किया, बल्कि उसकी जगह हमने credit कर दिया to capital account. So capital has been wrongly credited. So how do we rectify this? We debit the capital account in order to rectify the previous wrong entry, $100, and we will credit the discount received account, right? That's how we rectify this entry here. Why are we debiting capital account? Because capital was wrongly credited, right? That's why we need to debit the capital account to fix this error. Why are we crediting discount received account? Because discount received was supposed to have been credited initially, and this entry was skipped. So discount received income है, उस income को credit होना चाहिए था. We skipped that credit entry in the ledger, and that is why we have to fix this error by doing this. So your feedback, please, if you agree with this rectification entry. Amal and Minal. अगर नहीं समझ आई, तो then you have to give me a red cross if you don't get it. Okay, I'll explain it again. Good. Very good. So another common principal error. This is one example. Another common example is a van bought for cash, say $2,000, debited in purchases account. Okay, so you bought a van, a non-current asset. You bought a non-current asset for $2,000, and you thought that you bought goods for resale. That's why you chose the purchases account. So this is a principal error, even though the statement looks like almost exactly like rent paid by check was posted to the salaries account. So van bought for cash was debited in the purchases account. There's two statements almost identical, right? However, the previous one was a commission error, but this one is a principal error because you see the items involved here. One is a capital expenditure. The van is a capital expenditure, and purchase account is a revenue expenditure. So you confuse the capital expenditure with the revenue expenditure. And what does it mean? It means your non-current assets are wrong in the balance sheet. That means your cost of goods sold section in the income statement is wrong, which means your gross profit is wrong, which means your net profit is wrong. You see, principal error will have multiple folds. It will affect your financial statements in a very damaging way. That is why principal errors are considered more harmful. So how do we rectify this entry? We will have to see, we'll break down this error. The wrong entry is in the purchases account. It was wrongly debited. So how do we rectify this? Obviously, we're going to credit the purchases account in order to rectify this entry. The purchases account will be credited with $2,000. And then we have to see what was supposed to have been done with van. Van was supposed to have been debited, and we skipped that entry. It was omitted. So how do we rectify this part? We are going to debit the account which should have been debited in the first place, right? $2,000. So if you agree with this, give me a green check. Right? This one is an easier chapter than control accounts reconciliation. Control account rectifications जो थी वो उनके अंदर आपको multiple चीज़ों का ख्याल रखना पड़ता है. इसमें simply the transaction itself is going to give you enough hint. The error itself will give you enough hint to fix those errors. So this is the error of principle. That's how we forgot how to do rectification for omission errors here. Omission error कैसे rectify करेंगे? Simply जो transaction आपने books में omit किया आप उसको normal तरीके से आप paste कर देंगे. So Alina, you asked, so do we understand now that the difference between commission errors and the principal errors? And secondly, it's not going to be a standard. There is no standard way of rectifying errors because every error is going to be committed in a very unique set of circumstances. So the conditions in which the error was committed and the actual entry that you mistakenly placed in the books, those wrong entries are going to tell you how to rectify those errors. There are no preconceptions. There are no meditations for all of this. So we'll have to decide on the spot, okay, which error has to be rectified in what way. Excellent. So now comes the fourth error, error number 4 here, right? Error 4 is what we call the original entry errors. The original entry errors are simply means wrong amounts. It's not about wrong selection of accounts. It's about wrong amounts have been entered. That means you probably selected, you chose the correct accounts involved, but the amount entered, the dollar value entered over there is wrongly done. So either that was an overstatement or an understatement. So let me give you an example here. So cash sales, $45 was entered in the books as $54, right? Usually bookkeepers, they have lapse of concentration, so they make this type of an error very frequently. So you sold goods for $45 for cash, and instead of debiting cash with 45, you debited cash with 54. And similarly, sales were supposed to have been credited with 45. You credited sales account with 54. So basically, as long as the debit entry and the credit entry are equal to each other, the trial balance would still be balanced, but both cash account and sales account are wrongly overstated by $9. That is the error. So how do we fix the error? So let's see. So we know your cash was supposed to have been debited by 45. You debited cash by 54. So that means you over debited your cash account. So in this case, you credit, let me choose the rating. So you over debited the cash account. So now you will have to credit cash with $9, right? And sales account was supposed to be credited with $45. You credited sales account with $54. So you over credited your sales account. So to fix the over credit in the sales account, you're going to debit the sales account with the $9 here. Debit sales account, debit cash account, credit $9. So this is going to be the rectification entry for this original entry error. Can this also be an example? Yes, Maheen, very good. This is also known as a transposition error, right? A transposition error is where we swap the digits in a number, like 45 को 54 लिख दिया, या $180 को $108 लिख दिया. So transposition errors are the original entry errors in which you put a wrong amount in a way that you simply swap the position of the digits in a particular number. So all transposition errors are original entry errors because you end up putting a wrong amount. But remember, all original entry errors are not transposition errors, right? For example, this is an error of original entry, which happens to be a transposition error at the same time. But what about this error where you can say advertising bill paid by check, say $180 was entered in the books as $118, right? This is again a very common, this is an error of original entry. You can see error of original entry because instead of putting $180 in the accounts, you put $118, $118. And this is also a common error, because bookkeepers usually they are working as a team. So one bookkeeper is sort of dictating the entries, and the other bookkeeper is usually putting the entries in the either in the books or in the computer records. So bookkeeper A calls out $180, bookkeeper may mistake hearing it properly and confuse it with $118 instead of $180. So that is an error of original entry, but this is not a transposition error because you can see the digits have nothing to do with each other in common. There is no swapping of digits here. So this example 1 was also an original entry error. So is the example 2, but example 1 is also a transposition error, and example 2 is not a transposition error. Okay, Fajr ने क्वेश्चन पूछा है. Fajr ने कहा है, sir, but why did we debit the sales account? Only the amount was wrong. Okay. Excellent question, Fajr. Fajr ने एक question पूछा है. Let me explain Fajr's answer first, and then Fajr's question first, and then I'm going to come and we'll fix this entry. So let's fix this error. Okay, Fajr, let me just create. This is your cash book. Remember, cash account and bank account, they are a part of your cash book, right? And that is your sales account, right? So this is what you did. You debited cash book with 54 and you credited sales account with 54, right? This is the first error, this error here. So this error, cash sales of 45 was entered in the books as 54. So cash, ये $45 कैश बुक में 54 के तौर पे प्लेस हो गया, और सेल्स अकाउंट के अंदर $45 जाना चाहिए था, बट आपने 54 प्लेस कर दिया. That's how this error must have been translated in your books of account. Fajr, we agree? This is the original error जो आपने किया. Fajr, are you there? अच्छा, ठीक है. Okay, Fajr ने chat में लिखा. Okay, now what we need to do is change this 54 to 45 here, and change this 54 to 45 here. So one way of doing this is that you can do this. You can change this 54 and make it 45. And sorry, 45 here. Fajr, this was 54, right? You change this to 45. You simply overwrite the existing value. And that is Fajr has asked, why bother going about doing those double entries when we can it's just the wrong amount here. Fajr ने क्वेश्चन ये पूछा कि सिर्फ अमाउंट गलत था, तो हमें इतना ज़्यादा करने की क्या ज़रूरत है? हम सिंपली इसको कैंसिल आउट कर दें और उसकी जगह $45 लिखते हैं, which is a valid question over here. But the problem over here, Fajr, if a bookkeeper is found doing this, if the auditors detect a cutting or an overwriting in the books, the bookkeeper is going to jail for 6 months. In Pakistan, I think, if I'm not wrong, in Pakistan, the penalty for an overwritten bookkeeping entry just like that is 6 months imprisonment and 200,000 rupees fine, right? And why such a harsh penalty for such a small issue? The problem over here is, imagine what will happen if you allow this to take place in your books. That means the bookkeepers can change any entry at whim. They can change anything in the books, just cutting and overwriting and erasing the existing value and replace them with a new value. How many financial scandals and frauds can take place if you allow this? You understand the point over here? The whole purpose of this chapter is that if a bookkeeper makes an error, that bookkeeper cannot rectify this error. That error has to be fixed properly, because there is only a very small difference between a fraud and a genuinely committed error. ठीक है, अगर कोई भी bookkeeper इस तरह कर दे और फिर बाद में fraud की intent के साथ इस तरह की entry changes करता रहे, बाद में कहते सॉरी ये तो एक गलती से मैंने कर दिया था, ये ना मैं ठीक कर देता हूँ अगर पकड़ा जाए तो. You understand? So basically, the rectification of errors is a very detailed and a very formal procedure. For example, अगर मैं एक बुक कीपर हूँ, किसी कंपनी की बुक्स मेंटेन कर रहा हूँ और मैंने गलती से 45 के जगह 54 लिख दिया, अब मैं उसको नहीं ठीक कर सकता. This rectification is not going to be done with this by the same bookkeeper. Someone else will have to do it. All I have to do is report this mistake instantly, उसी वक्त, फौरन अपने supervisor को. My supervisor is going to report the same mistake to the accountant. The accountants are going to report the same mistake to the chief accountant, who is going to report the same mistake to the internal auditor. And then internal auditor will see whether this is a fraudulent intent के साथ ये error commit किया गया था या कि ये actually एक genuine mistake थी. So after investigation, internal auditor will approve the rectification entry. Then this order will be handed down back to the supervisor or the accountant, and the accountants or the supervisor or the chief accountant will pass the rectification entry. और वो rectification entry इस तरह नहीं होगी कि इसको काट के ठीक कर दिया जाएगा या इसके साथ कुछ साइन कर देंगे. No. You are going to keep the wrong entry in the books and then post the rectification entry next to it so that everyone knows that this one was a genuine mistake. It was not a fraudulent thing. That is why we have such detailed debits and credit entries introduced for every rectification. So Fajr has asked a very important question over here. I hope we understand that why we are going through so many formalities in order to rectify a simple error. Because you can't know whether this error was a fraudulent with whether the entry made in the books was with the fraudulent intent or a genuine mistake. Great. Thank you, Fajr. Thank you. So, we understand. Please give me your feedback. मैंने इतनी लंबी तकरीर कर दी, आप लोगों ने कोई feedback ही नहीं दिया मुझे. Right. All right. Asma? Adya? Good. Okay. Acha. Now, let's fix this error. Right. Okay, so now advertising bill was paid by check $180 and it was entered in the books as $118. So that means advertising is understated. Do you agree with this? Comparing these two amounts over here, you were supposed to debit advertising account with 118. You debited you were supposed to debit the advertising account with $180. You entered in the books as $118. So that means $62 understatement. So that means we are going to debit advertising account with $62, keeping the error intact in the books. उसको नहीं हम erase करेंगे या overwrite करेंगे. We are going to make a fresh entry showing the rectification so that everyone knows that this was an error made and now rectified. So advertising account will be debited with $62. Why? Because advertising was supposed to have been debited with 180 and we entered it and we debited it by 118. So it was under debited by $62, right? And we will credit our bank account with $62. Why? Because we were supposed to credit the bank account with $180 and we credited the same as $118. So bank was under credited by $62, right? So if you understand, if you agree with the rectification entry, please give me a green check. Amal and Asma. Amal and Asma. Okay, good. So that is the error of original entry, which is the wrong amount entered, and wrong amount entered का मतलब है या overstatement हो जाएगी या understatement हो जाएगी. अगर overstatement होगी तो आपको cancellation effect के लिए reverse entries use करना पड़ेंगी. And अगर understatement होंगी तो आप जो entries होनी चाहिए वो difference के साथ place कर देंगे. With more practice from the book, we will find more errors, more practice questions, and we will be comfortable soon. So the fifth error type is what we call complete reversal of entries. Reversal of entries, which simply means wrong sides. So no, it's not about the wrong selection of account. It's not about the wrong amounts entered. You selected the correct accounts. You put the correct amounts in there too, but you mistakenly chose the opposite sides. So how do we fix this? So discount नहीं चलो डिस्काउंट सिंपल एग्जांपल लेते हैं. Cash paid for salaries $100 was debited to cash account and credited to salaries account, right? You were supposed to do exactly opposite. When you pay cash for salaries, you were supposed to debit the salaries account and credit the cash account. आपने क्या किया? आपने cash account को debit कर दिया, opposite. And you were supposed to debit the salaries account, you instead credited the salaries account. So again, debit is equal to credit, but wrong side of the account. Right? So how do we fix this error? So this is your cash account or cash book, right? We know cash and bank accounts, they exist in the cash book. That's your salaries account, right? So the error is that you placed $100 in the cash account on the debit side. This is wrong, right? And salaries account में आपने credit side पे place कर दिया, हालांकि इसको debit side पे होना चाहिए था. So we need to now, in order to rectify this error, we need to bring these amounts on the opposite side. This is where the correction will happen, right? So you agree that we are going to debit the salaries account and we are going to credit the cash account because we have to transfer the value on the opposite end, and we are not going to use $100 but $200, because if we put just $100 over here, then the effect will be cancelled. We can't have just the cancellation effect. We need $100 on the debit side. So how do we do this? We will change this to $200. That is the correct entry. That was the wrong entry, right? And same goes here, right? This is how we double the amounts in this case, because half the amount will be needed for cancellation of the previous entry, and the remaining half will put the balance in its correct place. So you agree with this rectification? Give me a green check. Alina Sayed, Fajr, and Iman. Iman nikal diya. Very good. Just a second. So these are the 5 usual examples. These are the 5 usual examples. So let me just put them down here for simplicity's sake. So the first one is the omission error. That means ना कोई account debit हुआ, ना कोई account credit हुआ, state equilibrium के अंदर कोई difference नहीं आया. The second one was commission error. That means instead of account A, a same nature account B was involved in the error. So that means debit and credits have been placed and they are equal to each other. वो और बात है कि गलत account में चला गया. The equilibrium still not violated. The principal error is the third error, where again a wrong selection of an account has happened, but this time in a wrong type, in a different nature account. Again, debit and credit violation has not happened because account A की बजाय account B debit हो गया, तो आपके debit और credit का balance तो violate नहीं हुआ, लेकिन selection of account and the significant values in the financial statements, they have been affected. The fourth was the original entry errors. The original entry error is where the amount has been wrongly placed, and the original entry error also does not violate the debit and credit equilibrium of the trial balance and any other balancing procedure. And the fifth one is what we call this complete reversal of entries, right? So these are your 5 possible situations, reversal of entries, where you will make errors in the books, but these errors are not revealed by your double entry equilibrium. There is a 6th possibility as well. We call them generally a compensating error. A compensating error is there where there 2 or more accounts are involved in a way that coincidentally, if one account is overstated, the other accounts are understated in a way that the equilibrium remains intact. And basically, this is more like a miscellaneous possibilities, right? Where debit and credit are still intact, other than these five above, right? Other than the five above, if there is another situation where debit entry in the books is equal to the credit entry, then the debit and credit violation hasn't happened. So technically speaking, these errors are also there in the books, just like the other ones. Yes, they should be classified here, but usually these are the five errors which we will be coming across very frequently. And if you see, all of these errors are compensating errors, because the effect of one error is going to be compensated by an effect of the second error, right? So all of these are specific compensating errors where we have certain conditions and we have defined those conditions, और उनके examples भी देखी. And then there is a sixth category of miscellaneous compensating errors other than the five above. So you may come across a very unique error जो कि इन पांच में तो fall नहीं करता, but somehow the numerical effect of these errors is still compensating. So we will discuss those more with the suspense account, the second phase of the chapter. But for now, give me a green check if you understand all of these errors and their rectifications, right? Let me clear it. Okay, now. Iman Badr? Iman. Okay, Iman. Now, so our first half of the chapter is done. Turn to page number, chapter 12, page number 123, page 123, right? So let's do a question. NM, right? Take a NM 12.1, page 123, right? We have okay, only 2 minutes are left. But चलो ठीक है, then कल Wednesday है ना? हाँ, कल है हमारी class. ठीक है, we'll start 12.1 tomorrow, page 123. So I guess this is the end of the lesson. You stay back if you need to ask anything, else you go to your next class. Thank you very much, Asma. See you tomorrow. Khuda Hafiz.